like to call to order the January 13, 2024 Committee of the Whole regular board meeting of the State College Area School District Board of Directors. Please rise if you're able and join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you very much. I'd like to welcome everyone joining us in person this evening and anyone viewing remotely from home. The board convened an executive session before this meeting to discuss real estate and legal issues, including the following cases. Case number 4:22-CV-01335-. It is on. Okay. Okay, how's that? I don't think, is that better? That's really close. Like, I feel like I'm going to eat it. Sorry. So I'll start over. So case numbers 4:22-CV-01335-MWB, also number 580-MAL-2023, and the final case number is 2024-CV-2558-CI. Board members, with an agenda before you, are there any changes? It's going to be hard. I'd like to call on the board secretary to conduct a roll call of board members, please. Here. Here. Here.
Here.
Here. Here.
Here. Here.
All right. Thank you, Lynn. Up next, we have communications, and the superintendent update is what we're going to start with. Mr. Johnson?
Thank you, Amy. Thank you, Amy. I have, wow.
Yeah,
I have two items this evening. Please note that this year's school calendar, because January 6th was a snow day, May 23rd has now become a regular school day. Sorry about that. I would also like to note that Giant is once again partnering with the Skagit Food Service Department to help support our students. Everyone who shops at Giant stores through March 31st will be invited to round up at the register to support feeding school kids. Last year, we received almost $20,000.
That's great. Next up, we have our student representative update. I'm pleased to introduce Ryan Brown as our new student representative to the board, and we welcome any of your insights or perspectives, so feel free to raise your hand and join any discussions. Do you have some student initiative updates to share?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bader. Congratulations to several State High FFA members for receiving recognitions at the Pennsylvania FFA Midwinter Convention during the Pennsylvania Farm Show. Cooper Haynes, Everett Klinger, Clarice LaJunes, and Ava Brzezinski were selected as FFA Jacket Scholarship recipients for their dedication to their chapter. Jaylene Everhart, Addison Harpster, Athena Lamb, Clayton Landis, and Katie Ripka received Keystone degrees, the highest degree that can be earned by an individual at the state level. Degree holders must meet a number of qualifications, including demonstrating leadership in the planning and implementation of chapter activities, completion of at least 25 hours of community service, an investment of at least 300 hours, and or a minimum of $1,000 productively invested or earned through their supervised agricultural experience project. Congratulations to Delta Senior Luke Marazinskevich for taking first place in the 38th local Shakespeare Out Loud competition. Luke had to memorize and present a Shakespearean sonnet and monologue of 20 lines, and now will advance to the next level. Congratulations also to State High's Audrey Shaner, the runner-up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Jackie, do you have a legislative update for us this evening?
The only update I have for tonight is I wanted to let everyone know that the new members of the state legislature were sworn in last week. And that Paul Tikak has once again been put on the House Education Committee, which is great for us that we can talk to a member of the House Education Committee who is also representing us. So thrilled with that development, and I'll let you know how things develop.
Great. Thanks, Jackie. Gretchen and Peter, do you have anything from COG?
I do. Do you, Peter?
Yes.
You go first.
Yeah, just very quickly, update on the solar power purchase agreement. We have 2 more signatories, College Township and the College Township Water Authority. Ferguson Township will vote on the 21st, and then the Center Region Council of Governments will vote the week after on the 28th at the general forum.
Okay, thanks, Peter. I have 4 items I wanted to communicate, 2 specifically about the COG signing on to the PPA. The first, though, is that our region has a new refuse and recycling contract that will begin on April 1st. And I have been asked many times to communicate that so that everybody in our community knows that that's the date. It's April Fool's Day. That's when our new trash collection begins, and it's a whole new system. I'm sure you're all aware of it, so that's the date.
And Gretchen, that's everywhere but the borough, though, right? I think the borough runs their own. Living in the borough, I'm pretty certain.
That's trash pickup.
Yeah. Okay.
Recycling is...
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about both. Apologies. I just want to
Okay.
make sure we were.
So that is the first. The second is related to the COG and voting on the PPA, excuse me. So today the Climate Action Sustainability Committee voted to recommend to the General Forum, who will vote shortly, to go from 75 to 80%. So they're going to be entering in at 80%, potentially as recommended today by that committee, and also to finish paying the remainder of the legal fees that they owe, which is $4,727, and they recommended that committee to the General Forum to go ahead and pay the remainder of their legal fees. The fourth and last item I have is that the AmeriCorps intern working at the COG is putting together a community stewardship network. And this will be happening starting in February, most likely, and they are asking for at least 2 representatives from SCASD, from each entity, to partake in this. And I'll tell you what it's about. So the goal of the Community Stewardship Network is to build a regional network of community members equipped to facilitate relatable and meaningful conversations with community members regarding the Climate Action and Adaptation Plan. It provides an opportunity for constituents to understand their local government's policies and to provide input. So they're thinking that to go into specific network bases like schools, neighborhoods, clubs, associations, and they specifically mentioned PTOs. So probably PTOs are going to be contacted about this to see if they have a couple people who might be willing to participate. It involves 1.5 to 2 hours of training, and that will be done by the AmeriCorps intern. And so that is on the horizon, and it's a good program, and we're excited to. It's a pilot right now, but we're excited to see how this plays out. That's all I have.
Great. Thanks, Gretchen.
Amy,
Yeah.
just-
And then,
I serve on the technical advisory group for the Climate Action Adaptation Plan, and separate from my work on the school board, I do work with that group to help advise for that program, just so that I'm clear about, my roles and things.
great. Thanks. Good clarification. Thanks. So typically at this time of year, the board affirms its commitment to the Pennsylvania School Board Association's principles for governance and leadership. And we do so by posting them for the public in the boardroom with our signatures of commitment affixed. I think with our renovation, it's not quite hung yet, but it is back here behind us. PSBA developed these principles into a policy. Policy 011 was approved by the board at its April 11, 2022 meeting and is a set of guiding principles that frames the key work of the board. In adopting this policy, the board affirms its commitment to adhering to these principles and also to use them when evaluating the board's functioning and performance. Therefore, the SCASD School Board of Directors agreed to collectively and individually act in accordance with the following principles: advocate earnestly, lead responsibly, govern effectively, plan thoughtfully, evaluate continuously, communicate clearly, and act ethically. Details of policy 011 can be found on the district's board docs website. And with that, we're going to move on to public comment. Each individual will be allotted up to 3 minutes for items related to board business that are not a consent or action item for this evening. For those items, public comment will be held just prior, this is really just unsettling. Public comment will be held just prior to voting on that item. I don't want to say any words with P in them because it's projecting. Anyway, so if anyone here joining us this evening would like to make a public comment, please come up to the podium and you can give your name and where you reside in the district. Great. Oh, perhaps not. Okay, do we have anyone online who's interested? Okay, well then we'll move on. Moving on to committee of the whole portion of the agenda. Our first order of business for 2025 is the appointment of committee chairs for 2025. So I've actually received information for each of these committees from the committees. We didn't have it quite prepared in time for the memo. So I'm going to ask for the following motion. It's a little bit, I'll interject the names of the chairs. So the motion I'm going to ask for is to approve the appointments for the 2025 committee chairs as follows. Finance and Audit Committee, Jackie Huff. Culture, Climate, and Learning Committee, Carlene Crevecore. Facilities and Grounds Committee, Gretchen Brandt. And Policy Development Committee, Ann Demo. Do I have such a motion?
So moved, Buck.
Anderson, second.
Thank you. Any questions or discussions on this item? Any public comment? Okay. Board members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Thank you to everyone for serving in those roles. We appreciate your additional work. So we'll move on to Culture, Climate, and Learning. And we have an update on empowering the bystander training workshop recently held. Ms. Danielle Yoder is going to come and provide this update, and I think it's probably of interest to many of our attendees tonight.
Good evening. You are correct. We are very excited to see the amount of students and families that came to join us tonight. And they're really, with the help of our elementary counselors, going to do the bulk of the presentation. As you can see, I want to thank Stephanie Beaver, who really helped to coordinate this. And just a little blurb before I introduce the first presenter. In November, students in grades 3 to 5, about 80 participants across all elementary schools, attended a training here at SCASD for the first time called Empowering the Bystander. And tonight, Stephanie Beaver, our Director of Student Services, and several of the elementary counselors and students who participated are here to share about the program. So to start, I'd like to ask Mike Laskowski, the counselor of Grays Woods Elementary, to come and join us to share the presentation.
Don't get too close to the mic, right? Okay. Yes, I'm Mike Laskowski. I'm the school counselor at Grays Woods. You'll notice there's a bunch of little people behind me who probably don't usually have to come to these things. Let's give them a round of applause for their patience, first of all. I was going to share that these are some kids that have some superpowers, and they've gained the ability to sit quietly during a board meeting as one of those powers. But the more important one is the powers they gained at the Empowering the Bystander workshop that was held in this room last November. And so this was inspired by a similar workshop that the Central Intermediate Unit ran for several years and still runs. But the elementary school counselors kind of wanted to put a SCASD twist on it. We have been teaching lessons from the Second Step Bullying Prevention Unit for several years now, and we saw some ways we could connect that to this workshop. And so part of this was a review of those topics, but then a good chunk of it was learning some new, what are called interventions for preventing bullying. And, okay, I had a microphone problem. And then the students also had a little bit of an opportunity to talk about how they're going to share that with their schools. And we have a presentation here where the students who attended shared their thoughts on that, answer a couple of questions. And we would also like to recognize the students who came tonight at some point too. So maybe let's do the presentation first and then we can do it that way.
did you learn?
We learned like what to do if there is. We learned how to report bullying. There are strategies to get rid of bullying, like distracting and balancing.
What are we planning to do at Coral Street?
At Coral Street, we try to teach everyone not to be scared to report bullying. We did a kindness tree where everybody would write down something kind of they did. We plan to teach kids how they could stand up if they are in a bullying situation. We can treat people how we want to be treated. Stop bullying.
We learned about like what bullying is and like how to help somebody who's being bullied.
I learned how to be a bystander and stop bullying. I learned how to distract someone from bullying somebody.
As a bystander training, I learned that distracting is a useful way to stop bullying because if you train the subject, they could forget about what they were doing. And at the bystander training, I learned about balancing, which is balancing out the good and bad things to distract the people that are being bullied. At the bystander training, I learned that I can support someone who's being bullied by being near them and talking to them. At the bystander training, I learned about reasoning, and reasoning is telling the bully why they should stop bullying.
And I'm Dr. L, school counselor at Ferguson Township Elementary. Tell me about what you've been doing with the bystander training.
It's all the way up.
On the YouTube.
Yep. Here?
There.
All right. Okay, be prepared. This could go wrong.
No.
It could be the original video. Well, should we just play? Okay, we're sorry, Ferguson.
We appreciate you.
They're all saying great things.
Okay, Grayswoods Wolfpack. Last question for today. How do you plan to use this training to help stop bullying at your school?
Making posters and put them all up around the school. Making videos.
Using balancing.
Using distracting to distract bullying. Using supporting the help the victim of bullying.
Helping when the bullying happens. Like being on the lookout for bullying to stop it. Like changing the subject. Yeah, just changing the subject. You could use distracting by like if a person's getting bullied, then you could distract the person and the bully.
Yeah.
Good evening, my name is Tiffany Glad-Myers, and these are our STAR ambassadors here at Mount Whitney Elementary. Several of these students attended the Empowering the Bystander training, and we look forward to sharing what we learned with you, as well as having these students further our whole entire school's knowledge of the interventions and ways that they can use their bystander power. Ambassadors, can anybody start us off by sharing what you learned at the training? Maris, go ahead.
I learned an acronym for how to remember how to recognize bullying. It's HARU. The H is for hurtful, the O is for on purpose, the R is for repeated, and the U is for unfair and one-sided.
Thanks, Maris. Who else could share? Sam.
I learned about 5 different types of bullying. There's physical bullying, social bullying, cyberbullying, verbal bullying, and bias-based bullying. Who knew there were that many types?
Thanks, Sam. Anybody else share with us? Natalie, go ahead.
I learned that it's important to be a bystander because some people are not comfortable or able to stand up for themselves. And that's why you can be an upstander to stand up for them.
So important, yes. Who else could share? Kayleen.
I learned that some people might not want to get directly involved. So I learned ways to comfortably get involved to be an upstander.
Yeah, so important. We learned some interventions that can meet anyone's comfort level. Nellie.
I learned 5 interventions you can use to stop bullying and make people feel comfortable.
Yes, yes. And who can share those interventions with us? Morgan.
The interventions we learned was reporting, refusing, supporting, balancing, and distracting.
Thank
you.
Hi, my name is Amber Ligeti, and I'm the proud school counselor at Park Forest Elementary. At my side, I have 5th grade STAR ambassadors. STAR ambassadors, your voices are confident and strong. Please say your first name and one adjective that describes the training that we went to last month.
My name is Molly, and my word is exciting. My name is Tegan, and my word is thoughtful. My name is May, and my word is empowering. My name is Whitney, and my word is engaging. My name is Evelyn, and my word is powerful.
My name is Keon, and my word is upstating.
My name is Harrison, and my word is fun.
My name is Heath, and my word is helpful.
My name is Hunter, and my word is exhilarating.
We're missing Ellie, and her word is meaningful. As we work together to add positive energy to our Park Forest community, some ways we will use that energy are
To make videos for our school. To highlight all our hardworking staff in our building.
To support and make handmade prizes for upstanders.
To encourage everyone. Give them a boost if they are feeling busted.
To inform the 4th graders how to be STAR ambassadors. To pay close attention to how people are being treated and be ready to act.
To train younger students as mini ambassadors.
To interrupt anything hurtful.
To give a student's perspective between kids and grown-ups.
Thank you so much for this opportunity and our mission to be empowered bystanders.
Hello, my name's Allison Simpson, and I'm the school counselor here at Radio Park Elementary School. These are some of our STAR ambassadors that joined us on the Empowering the Bystander training. So tell us, what did you learn at the training, and how do we plan to get this important message out?
My name is Asher, and I learned that when someone is being bullied, you can use one of the 5 bullying strategies to prevent it.
My name is Nina, and I learned that there are many ways to stop and prevent bullying. One of the ways is to get help immediately. There are also a lot of other ways.
My name is Leah Henry, and I learned distracting, supporting, and balancing. And balancing is when you try to balance the good comments with the bad ones.
My name is Bryn, and I learned the different types of bullying. Some of them are verbal bullying, physical bullying, and cyberbullying.
And James and Asher, how do we plan to get this important message out?
My name is James, and we plan to get this important information out by hanging up posters in our school. My name is Asher, and we plan to get this important message out by sharing tips during the morning announcement.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Hi, my name is Heather Bainey. I am the school counselor at Spring Creek Elementary, and here are some of my STAR ambassadors that attended the Empowering the Bystander training.
Kindness makes SCE sparkle.
What did you learn at the Empowering the Bystander training?
We learned all about the things a bystander can do to improve the bullying situation.
to stop bullying and how to react to it.
I learned about how you can be a good or bad bystander and how to recognize bullying.
I learned that there's many types of bullying.
How are we going to share the information we learned at Empowering the Bystander?
Well, we're going to share the information that we learned at the Empowering the Bystander by sharing our information on the morning announcements that our school does on Thoughtful Thursdays.
Another way we can share the information that we learned from Empowering the Bystanders is through kindness challenge. We can bring that back by sharing it with everybody, and on Thursday we'll bring it on the announcements.
We're going to do STAR lessons in the middle of the year, and we're going to share it in the morning announcements.
So we have several of our empowered bystanders with us today. If you guys could please stand up and so we can recognize you. Very cool group of kids who, wow, just every time, okay. There's so much, we want kids to understand that their role is so important in preventing bullying, and that there are a lot of different ways to do that. Some kids have different personalities and different comfort levels with how to approach it, and that was a huge takeaway here. So we're so proud of them, and we'll continue doing this. We were really happy with how it went.
Thank you so much. And you guys did such a great job watching all those videos and participating in the board meeting. I really appreciate you coming this evening and sharing everything that you learned. It's so nice to get to see that. We spend a lot of time doing boring stuff, so we're really excited that you came tonight. So thank you. Does any board members have questions?
I just wanted to say thank you to the counselors for putting this on and bringing the kids here and working on our bullying situation. So I appreciate that.
Do you guys have any questions for
It's just
Councilor
such a
Liskowski?
great way to start 2025. So we're just really grateful that you shared that with us because it really gets us excited. So thank you.
Agreed. All right. Thanks so much, guys. I think you're getting your picture taken.
Picture.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, some of them, they might see you.
Lynn says for us to stand so we can be behind you.
You want us to be up there behind? Okay. All right. Two. Thank you. I'm so sorry about that.
That wasn't necessary.
hand it off to you.
I don't know what's going on.
That was CJ.
Wow. It's weird. Just, I think you gotta be like.
It's like not sensitive and then it's like really sensitive.
Really sensitive.
Yeah.
Like it-
All right, we have our last visitors trickling out, so I'm going to announce our next item from Culture, Climate, and Learning. We're going to have Ms. Yoder and Dr. Bucher and Ms. Merritt provide the final report of the 2022-2024 Future Ready Goals 2 and 3. Thanks, guys.
No, thank you. So tonight we're going to bring a lot of data in front of you. You may have questions at the end. There may be questions that we need to come back to. One of the things I want to share is the presentation that was shared with you on Wednesday has been updated as late as this evening as we were reviewing and tweaking some data errors. So Mrs. Tressler will be updating that within board docs as well, but if you see any discrepancy, the one that Dr. Bucher has presented is the one that we will be talking through tonight. So just a couple things to keep in mind. This is the former district comprehensive plan that we developed in 2022 after a delay due to the COVID pandemic. The implementation of school comprehensive plans has brought greater awareness to our goals, aligning efforts across our district. As a result, we've seen growth in many areas supporting student success in grades K through 12. Tonight we will be presenting on our, in February we will be presenting on our new school plans during the work session. But tonight, we are going to review goals 2 and 3. If you recall, in November, we reported on goals 1 and 4 of the past plan. This slide is just really going over the goals and action steps of the past plan, but again, we have broken it down tonight. And for this year, we have really prioritized the PSSA data. If you recall from Future Ready, when we wrote our updated goals for 24 to 27, Pennsylvania Department of Education really wants us to focus on the state assessments. So the data we'll be presenting tonight is the overall data from the 2023-24 PSSAs. I'm trying. You will notice there is not map data on this, although that our goals did mention map data. We have presented the map data at the beginning of the year. So this year will be primarily the PSSA. And we will be doing the goals in order. So the first goal that we'll be talking about, we'll go through the grade spans. We'll talk elementary, middle, and then keystones, which would be the high school. We'll do that for the goals as we go down. So moving into slide 5, our first goal by the end of 2024, our goal was to meet 88 proficiency as a combined proficiency or overall growth. Thanks to new measurement in PVOS, and I wanted to give a shout out to Tyler Constable. He is our K-12 math coordinator. He was able to take some heavy Excel documents and begin to disaggregate and show us how to do that. So we have finally, for the first time in 3 years, that combined data that shows whether or not the 88% of students are meeting proficiency or meeting growth, and you'll see that in the breakdown today. The math and ELA data we are showing is 4th and 5th grade only. As you are aware, our 3rd grade students do take the PSSAs, but there is not a growth measure. And since we wanted to focus on this goal, the math that you're seeing is combined all schools, and in elementary it's just 4 and 5. So overall, what you're going to see in different dates, you can see, and we had shared our math is a little bit lower than we expected. We are working on that currently, going through a new curriculum review. But overall, we ended up with a 79.5 proficiency or growth. We really want that growth measure to be higher, and that's something that we continue to focus on with this year's school comprehensive goals. When we disaggregate the data, there is one slide later today that there is one subgroup that only had 19, and we missed that. So we went ahead and let that up. But we removed any race that had less than 20 students. However, as you can see, overall within the breakdown, we are a little inconsistent in elementary. We are continuing within the new future comprehensive plan to focus specifically on our Black and Hispanic populations because, as you can see, they have a lower overall proficiency and growth measure. We are, when we were reviewing this, much higher than the state, but we still know that that is an area that we want to target and grow. Additionally, within the breakdown, because Chris and Jonathan will be showing you this, to help you better understand, make it a little bit easier. In this count, under economically disadvantaged, in 4th and 5th grade, 187 students counted as economically disadvantaged. And within that 187, 66.31 either met proficiency or growth. When we compare them to the students who are not counted as academically disadvantaged, you will see I highlighted that number. Again, some of the disproportionate data that we are seeing. So the total is always going to be the same because it's the same amount of students, but you really want to compare the yes, that's who qualified under that subcategory, compared to the no, so that we know those areas we need to focus on.
I'd like to share the same type of organization of the slide for middle school, grades 6, 7, and 8. And you can see for math, the total student count and our overall proficiency or met growth prediction. So you can see by that number, we have got a little bit of work to do there too. We were working toward the 88% proficient or met growth projections. And although we're above the state, we're still not happy with our number, and we continue to work on that in our departments. In fact, our first math curriculum committee meeting is happening this week, so we're very excited about that. On the next slide, it's a very similar graph to the one for elementary, showing the demographic breakdown by race. As Danielle mentioned, there are a couple of races not identified here because they had so few students. But you can see the overall proficiency there by category. Again, still have lots of work to do there. In the next graph, you can see this one breaks down economically disadvantaged, ELL, GIEP, and IEP students, just like the elementary one did. And you can see there's, in some areas we have some growth, which is nice to see. And in some areas we have a little bit of slippage too. So continue to work on that.
All right, so looking at the Keystone Algebra exam, that mic is working. We have proficiency of almost 81%, and meeting that growth comparatively too, as you can see there, on the same goal too. Breaking that down by our groups, there's some growth there that is always room for growth, but there's some decent response there, and noting that a number less than 20 we are not able to report on for the most part. So looking at those groups there, there's somewhat of a consistent trend there, positive. On the Keystone Algebra, breaking that down for our different groups, economically disadvantaged, English language learners and GIPs, and students with IEPs. So there's the percentages there. Breaking them on the far right gives you the area for growth. Obviously, would be English language learner, the biggest area. GIP is 100%, and some definite room for growth, but some positive things to look at there.
So overall, what we didn't do, and in hindsight thinking we could have, we did not take all of that data and combine it to see what overall we were within proficiency because we are so used to working in grade bands. If you'll recall, this year's target, we have a 3-year target to reach 90% by the end of 2027. So we are above, in many areas, the 70% target goal for this year. But we, in math, is definitely the area that we continue to work on. We will move through the ELA, and you can see that we almost, we really only had 2 years of this comp plan instead of the 3 to meet the goal. And our ELA made significant increases last year. So when we go through this, it's going to be the same types of data. But overall, for our 4th and 5th grade, we did hit 85.72. The standard goal we had hoped to meet was 90%. Our disaggregated looks a little better, but it is still an area we are working on in elementary with our Black and Hispanic. And again, when we get to the new school comp plan, you will see that our number 1 goal involves our marginalized populations and what we can be focusing on. Again, with our disaggregated data, we really want those numbers to be the same. We want to make sure that all students are reaching proficiency and growth when we measure this. So we're lagging a little bit behind, but we are closer in English language arts in elementary overall than we were with math. So we are making great gains. And keep in mind, we did a reboot with ELA really just last year, and to see some of the gains for all students.
For middle school ELA, our goal was 90% of proficiency or growth. You can see we came in at 81.39%. So we're just, short of that, and we'll continue to work on that. In the next grid, you can see again the breakdown by race. And one of the things that we see is a big difference between the middle school scores and our Keystone results. There's a giant jump, and I anticipate there are kind of some reasons for that, which we've talked about before. But we certainly want to keep working and raising all of our academic performance in all of our groups. The next graph shows the economically disadvantaged ELL, GIP, and IEP rates, and you can see again. Some of them are higher than others, and we still have lots of work to do. Our work never ends. Each time we get a new group of students, we have to just keep going and using our very best performance and our very best strategies to help them. Next is Keystone.
Keystone Literature. Our goal was the 90%, hitting that at 91.6. And the disaggregated data that's to get a chance to talk about that for a little bit, some nice growth there. And this is one area that we mentioned earlier. Normally you don't report under 20, but the Black population count of 19, that was at 89.5 almost. And that's, I think, referencing what Mrs. Merritt had referenced on that jump from middle school was pretty significant. I believe 40 plus points. So that's a positive swing there. And look at that, dissect that to see what we're doing well between those 2 time spaces.
And just so you know, there was a similar score for math for Black students as well. So,
thank you.
For math.
So for Keystone Literature, thank you. Keystone Literature, we have those broken down as well as economically disadvantaged English language learners, JP and IEP, showing how we've met those throughout across the board. If you look to the hard right, meaning that 90% achievement on our goal. And let's see here. All right, this one moving into a separate sub-goal of Goal 2. This is the 3rd sub-goal of the comp plan. Using the MTSS framework and culture responsive teaching and learning, the district will reduce the number of student offenders other than white to less than 30% of the total number of student offenders reported on the Safe Schools report. So looking at a trend there from 22-23 school year to 23-24 school year, there was an increase in elementary an increase in middle, a reduction at the high school, but averaging all three levels, there was, it actually stayed the same as the 78 in both years. Looking at those breakdowns again by population, there was a, from year over year, from 22-3 to 23-24, there was a increase in the Asian and decrease in the African American Black population. Hispanic reduced as well in the last year. Multiracial stayed about the same, and the white group, Caucasian, increased. So that's kind of a quick breakdown of those groups as far as the year-over-year comparison from those two school years by group of reportable offenses. Looking at those same breakdowns, students with and without IEPs, the counts there, 57 compared to 21 in 22-23 and 59 in 23-24 compared to 19. Fairly comparable numbers in those two school years. Good summary of that.
Jonathan, before you go on to the next goal, can I ask a question about the racial breakdown? So just trying to understand, in terms of meeting the goal, if our goal is under 30%, then the first 4 percentages we would combine, right?
Correct.
To decide whether that's that 30%.
Yeah.
Okay, because I just was trying to do the math to understand whether,
slightly
how
over.
far off we were from the goal, because we didn't really tally to
So-
see.
The numbers, just some rough numbers here, 38% in 22-23, and 33% in 23-24. So missing the mark on that 30%.
So should we,
Yeah.
About improvement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
should we take questions on goal 2 before we move to goal 3?
No.
I'm sorry, I did interrupt, but
Or-
I was trying to understand that slide, so it's up to you guys whether you
No,
want to.
could we ask question 2 before we move on? Because
Yeah,
I
I think
have.
let's focus on goal 2, then we can move to goal 3. So if we have questions, or if Amy's
ahead.
okay with that.
Okay.
Go ahead, Carly. I'll let you go first.
Yeah, because I was looking at the total. Oh, and when you have proficient or met goal, yeah. So basically, there's an overlap because if you're, so basically it works because there's an overlap. So of the same people that were proficient and met their goal, because that's so. Right.
That we dig, and it says, did they meet proficiency? Yes or no?
Right.
Did they meet growth? Yes or no? The way our Future Ready goal was written, it was proficiency or growth. So many students did both. But this calculated to get to the overall goal, did they meet one of the two to get because of the way? Because when we looked at the goal, it will increase the percentage of students demonstrating proficiency or meeting growth. That's why we calculated it that way. But you are correct. Many of them overlap and did both, but some were one or the other to get the overall result.
But you didn't count anybody twice. You
Right.
would only count
Nobody
if they
was
weren't
counted
proficient.
twice.
Then they were only counted.
Yeah,
if
we
they
took
met a
every
goal.
student and said if this,
If you're proficient.
Right.
Then
Okay.
if you didn't make proficiency, did
If
you
you-
make growth?
right,
And
okay.
then we added that to the proficiency.
Okay, just wanted to clear that up when I was looking at those total.
That's an important question. Anything else, Caroline? Dan?
Yeah, so when we go back and we're looking at elementary math and the percentages there, what have we found? Because I know this has come up before, even before I was on the board, when I was sitting in board meetings. This has been going on for a couple years where minority students have scored lower than their counterparts in elementary school. What do we think the issue with that is? Have we dug into that at all? Have we discovered anything?
sure, and I think there's a lot of root causes, and we don't have all the answers, because if we did, we would be seeing greater improvements. We were looking today at the state data, and across the state of Pennsylvania, it's 18% proficiency for Black students. Not okay. We're at, right, so we're at 46, so we're above the state. But right now, what we started to do is kind of work backwards with, are we over identifying our minority students for special ed? And we're really trying to use that response to intervention approach and making sure that they're getting, you know, what is the true disability or what is the true need of the students, so that we can keep the inclusion to get them, and then targeting our interventions. So we're working through that. We're working through the curricular updates to try to figure out, is it a curriculum issue? Really, what is it? But we haven't identified one root cause.
So have we compared ourselves to other districts that are similar to ours? When we look at comparing ourselves to a state number, we're dealing with inner city schools that have nowhere near the funding that we have, the curriculum we have, things like that. When you compare us to a school like ours, how are our minority students doing compared to, what are some of the schools, the districts you toured for buildings, right?
So there's a similar thing, which is why I think there's a bigger issue across the state in the questions and what is being asked of students, whether the level, is there bias in the question?
In the test.
In the test, and what they're saying, because you're seeing it across the state.
Right.
And like I said, the average is 18% in math. But when you look across, we're 46, 50%, which is saying that we're high performing. So other schools are high performing as well, would be in the same range. To get an average of 18%, there's a lot of school districts that are lower than 18%.
Absolutely, and I
So,
understand that. I just think
yeah.
when we compare ourselves and we, you know, I don't necessarily think it's a pat on the back that we're higher than the state average, because we're comparing ourselves to some of these schools that have nowhere near the resources we have, right? So I think and I know it's more work on you, but when we're doing some of these numbers, and I'm not even sure where we could find them, I think would be great to see a comparison, not necessarily, oh, we're 30% higher than the state average, but compared to schools like ours, we are on par, or we're this, or we're that, right? Because 18% for the state average is awful, but we know that there's a lot of issues with our public school system in Pennsylvania, the funding models, the things, you know, the equitable distribution of all of that. So I think moving forward, I think it would be great to see that kind of information as well. If that's not too hard to pull, it's probably online somewhere, right?
So disaggregated data is, I'm not saying it's impossible, because I do a lot of research in my college courses. We finally got this through PVOS. So Future Ready has a public site, which is great, but it doesn't, like if you even look up State College, many of our schools won't have any of that disaggregated data because they don't have the N, right, or the number that they need to really disaggregate. So it's very difficult. In Future Ready, they don't give us all 8 elementary schools as a district. When you go to Future Ready for the public site, you see the 8 elementary schools separate, and then just an oversight of State College area school districts. So it's the same with all of them. The national site, I can't think of what it's called. We have looked at that to try to get some disaggregated data. We could go back to that, but a lot of times it's delayed. The national site is delayed by a year or two, and we're trying to focus on our current data to help us with the trends.
And that makes sense. I mean, I think it would be worth exploring that a little bit. Just see, I know it's a big ask, but that leads me into the Keystone portion, right? When we talk about Algebra 1 Keystone exams, and that's middle school, correct? High school.
It's middle school and high school. If you're talking about the Algebra 1?
Yep, the Algebra 1
Yeah.
Keystone. That's high school, right? Both,
Some
okay.
take it middle school, some in high school.
So, why do we think minority students are taking that test at a much lower rate than their white counterparts? I mean, I know when you combine those, but there weren't even enough Black or African American students to be counted on this list here, right? Because they're not listed up here.
We don't have that many students. It's only 2%. or
In middle
3%.
school and high school, we don't have 20.
Because it's only one grade.
It's only one grade.
Okay.
It's only 9th grade or in 8th grade. But
It's only one
mainly
subject.
9th grade.
It's only one subject.
Any student that took the Algebra
it's
1
only
course,
one
either in 8th or 9th or 10th
So-
grade.
They're disproportionately scoring lower in elementary, and then they're not advancing like their counterparts to take the Keystone 1 algebra or be ready for that class by middle and high school.
No.
Help me understand this.
Okay, here we go. There are enough they all take it in algebra in ninth grade, okay?
Okay.
Unless they're advanced in eighth grade, they
Mhm.
take it. But it's only for that year. So you have 500 students, you get 3% of those students, which is less than the N of 20, okay? So for those students, they actually, you know, they're in the 80, 90% for Keystones at the high school. And the reason we think is because, first of all, the support systems that we do have, where Algebra 1, we have a double period of math for algebra, which is allowed to catch them up to score well. Plus, it's a graduation requirement. Okay, so there's more at stake in taking that test. For the Algebra 1, the literature, and the biology Keystone. So those scores, as you can see, because of the efforts that they're doing in the high school, support services and the double period of math and things of that nature, they are scoring better on that test.
Yeah, it's just if there's less than 20, we don't publicly share the data because it's too
It's
easy to
I understand
identify
that,
students.
so-
Okay, I'm sorry.
That's what I'm just trying to understand. There's
Yeah.
less than 20 Black or African American students taking the Algebra 1 Keystones.
Correct.
Why do we think that is?
Because there are not that many black students in our school district. When you're looking at the elementary data, you're combining all elementary schools for 2 grades, 4th and 5th grade. When you're looking at the middle school data, you're looking at both middle schools for 3 grades, 6th, 7th, and 8th. Basically, for the high school, you're effectively looking at 1 grade. So you're cutting there are just not that many students. It's not that they're not progressing to take it. When it's time for them to
Right.
take the
So there's
Keystone
less
exam,
than-
they take it.
Okay.
But you only take it once.
Right.
Which is my question, like, how are we measuring growth on Keystone exams? Because the same kid is not, well, some kids are taking it twice. So are we measuring growth just on the ones that don't
It
pass
is a
it?
state calculation that looks at their prior year's 8th grade PSSA. It's just like the 4th grade science is based on the 3rd grade reading score. So there are
Okay.
some strange ways that they have developed the data at the state that they've
Gotcha.
used different calculations. So it's really looking at the trajectory of math from 3rd through 8th grade.
So it's
but
the
then the Keystone goes back and looks at their
8th grade
historic
PSSA
math.
to the Keystone.
Yeah.
And the 8th grade ELA PSSA to the literature Keystone.
Yes.
Okay, that was my big question. I was like, where's the
So
growth
just to
coming
clarify, I just want to say that one more time. The state is defining what growth is
Right.
for our students.
Correct.
The state is defining that measure.
Correct. From 1 year, and it is from one test to the next test of the student.
And do we know
Yes.
how they're measuring the growth? Do we know how the state is doing that?
It is a very long and drawn-out measure. We can report back to that when you look at PVOS. It is a whole calculated system that they put a lot of statistics in to determine whether or not. In my opinion, after looking at it year after year after year, if a student performs and misses one question on the math PSSA in 3rd grade, and they come back in 4th grade, and they miss 3 questions instead of 1, they're going to show they didn't grow because they're really looking at the comparison of scale scores. Now, they will say that there is more added into that, but a lot of times when you're advanced and you're in elementary school hitting pretty much perfect, and then you drop a little bit as the work gets more challenging, you will show that you didn't meet the growth standard in some aspects.
So it is possible for a student to be proficient but not meet their growth projections.
100. That's what we're seeing. Yes.
One of the things that we're seeing, though, in the high school with all 3 Keystones, biology, literature, and Algebra 1, no matter when they take Algebra 1, is that the growth is all in the highest range in our district. It's all blue. And that's an unusual kind of phenomenon. In most districts, it's inverted. Students do better in elementary, and then there's a little slide in middle and a slide in high school, but ours is exactly opposite. And again, we have some theories and thoughts about that, and we just continue to work, using the data that we have in front of us. So that's what we have available to us.
When you were talking about the data, so that the PSSA has like assessment anchors where you've got different kind of content areas. are you able to, or is anyone able to disaggregate as in
Yes.
terms of an assessment anchor?
Yes.
So that when we're going to curriculum,
Yes.
we'll be able to say, oh, in terms of, proportions,
Yes.
this, okay. Because that's going to be
Yes.
super useful too, I think, for us to know, oh, not just this kind of data, but we seem to have an issue with.
Here's our lowest anchor in third
Yes,
grade. Here's our
yes,
lowest
that's
in fourth. Here's our lowest in fifth. We did the same thing when we did the ELA curriculum revision. Same thing. We looked at where our lowest anchors are and talked about why and what we can do. Some of it's a little challenging because we can't see the questions.
Sure.
So we can, like, text pen analysis in some grades, for example, is the lowest. I think that's a really tough skill for younger students to pull that all together into text-dependent analysis. But that's what the state is saying that is our bar. So we're going for it.
Yes, Dan raised a lot of interesting questions when it came to minority students, and I kind of have similar questions when it relates to economically disadvantaged students. One is how we defining that? How are we defining these students? And two, what are we doing to help them?
Do you want to answer that one? I can. So we define an economically disadvantaged student. It's a self-reported type of metric. So it has to do with free and reduced lunch applications.
So basically, it's the number of free and reduced students
Free
we
and
have.
reduced lunch.
I thought we went
So it
down by
represents,
that.
so it's a low bar
Correct.
in terms of it represents only the students that apply
That
for free and
apply for
reduced
it,
lunch. We may
correct.
have more economically disadvantaged students that choose not to apply for that, and we don't have a means to measure or track
Okay, I didn't
those.
think we were doing that anymore. I didn't think we were tracking that.
That's the only means we have to look at it. That's the only means we have to look at economic disadvantage.
We don't. None of us could. We are working. Megan Shaper, as part of Food Services, we have PIMS uploads that are required to the state. And there are direct certification families who qualify automatically for free and reduced lunch purposes, but otherwise it's a qualification based on income. We have our school administration they do not know who those students are. So you are correct. That is really only something to really serve as privacy. So it does make it a little bit difficult for us when we want to try to drill down and find out who and do even the cross comparisons. One of the things that we try to look at is, are they economically disadvantaged and a minority student, right? Because that's that intersectionality we need to look at. But we have a difficult time with that. So we're trying to work with Justin Hetrick. Curtis is working to find out how else we could begin to identify within the schools what we can do to really target the needs of those students.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that intersectionality is the challenging piece, is that when we look at this kind of data, we don't know which of those groups happens to have more. And sometimes we're not talking about just two intersectionalities. Some maybe have an IEP, be economically disadvantaged, and potentially be a marginalized racial group. So that's one of the challenges always, yeah. Other questions on goal number 2? That was really helpful. I appreciate you taking the.
And Amy, you said on the I'm on slide 24, right? When we're talking about we want that percentage of other than white to less than 30% of total number of student offenders reported on the Safe Schools report, correct? So our goal is under 30. And we started this, correct me, from 2022 to 24. This was this goal, correct? What student policies have changed that could also have helped lower this number in the past 2 years? So was there any I know we introduced restorative practices, right? I guess if I'm trying to frame this the proper way. How have we seen the effectiveness of that reducing this number? And what do you see moving forward with that? I know we're going to talk about the other ones next meeting, but
And I'll let them pipe in too. One of the things we really have focused on is our student code of conduct, and what we can do with regards to discipline when we look at every single student. So we now involve administration, central administration, anytime there is a possible question with suspension, looking through that, what do we do? But our code of conduct has been aligned really with the restorative, culturally responsive approach. So we've worked through that. I will tell you, and I wish I would have had it tonight, we are now required actually to report more state reportable than we used to. Elementary used to be very, very broad, and the state has come back and said if it is a suspension, if it is an in-school, if it is anything, it becomes a state reportable offense. So I would say in the past, what we may not have reported on data because we didn't have to, we are now. I would have to go back and look at those incidences to see, like if somebody mistakenly brings a small knife to school, that is a state reportable offense within our system. But I don't know if any of you want to share, but really the biggest work has been with our student code of conduct and then changes to try to move away from exclusionary discipline.
Well, and you mentioned involving administration when anything is questionable, and also involving special ed is another piece of that. But when you said administration, I just wanted to point out that that's one of the pieces of that. And I would say some of the trauma-informed training we're providing all staff would hopefully be changing potentially what things elevate to certain levels at different times.
Yeah, I would say that exactly is solving issues before they become larger issues through mediation, restorative practices, and just getting to the student prior. Sometimes if you don't get to those right away, they escalate, and then we have, fights and those sort of things, and that's reportable.
So we could safely say that restorative practices, introducing that in schools has helped lower this number some because we're seeing less state reportable events based on not suspending students, so on and so forth, right? And this is, along with this, but on a side note, I would love if at some point, when next time we do a student or staff survey, if we could include a question on there about restorative practices to see how students and staff actually feel they're going. Just so it gives us an idea of do people need more training or if we can pivot in a different direction.
To answer another question earlier about anecdotally last year, the high school presented on their mental health summits and PBIS initiative, and there was a drastic reduction in incidents within the high school. And we're not exactly sure with 1 year's worth of data if that was direct result. But it was pretty promising to see the reduction based on the efforts that the high school's doing, and as well as the middle schools and elementary all the way through the PBIS. So just wanted to share that there was a presentation last year.
That's right.
And I saw some of the results for this school year, which are remarkable. I had a chance to take two superintendents to visit the high school to look at what we're doing for PBIS and restorative practices and the NTSS. And those numbers are phenomenal, what they're doing at the high school. So I'm eager to see what their final results are going to be, but that'll be coming out soon.
And I guess I would say, Mr. Johnson, that when we reported in November, one of our prior Future Ready goals was to implement the PBIS system across all schools. So 3 years ago, the high school didn't have any, and we've really worked with all buildings to put those in places. Although that's not policy, that was a change that we pushed to continue to push.
Right, and you still have a couple places where you're getting up to the full tier in different buildings. It's really helpful to know about that change in reportable offenses. I would say as we continue to track this year over year, it'll be really important in these tables to note when that change happened, because if it's going to impact the data, like a lot of times, sometimes you share that information with us, but when people go back to look at presentations, it's really helpful if that kind of contextual information is there in case they're not watching the meeting and things like that, so that they're not judging the results unfairly if the standards have changed. So,
Could I just get clarification on that? What makes it a state reportable offense? Is it the decision to use exclusionary discipline? Is that what makes it? Or are there specific acts that rise to the level of state reportable?
There's a specific list that
all schools have the same list. So if you
Okay.
engage in a fight, if there's police involvement,
terroristic threat,
the medium to
stealing.
large offenses.
Yeah.
Okay, so there's not like a way for you to decide, well, we're going to try this instead of suspending so that it's not a state reportable offense. It's like very clear what those are. Okay.
Yeah, the
You're the
offense
student.
doesn't relate to the discipline, it just relates to the incident. So as we know, to the example that Danielle used, like bringing a weapon to school, there are some cases where our policy gives the superintendent discretion, and so the discipline may be one thing for that versus a student who intentionally brings a weapon to school may have a different discipline, but both of them are reportable to the state. Does that help clarify?
So then, would we be able to look at just all disciplinary incidents? Because this is a pretty small number overall. I suspect of the things that get reported to the office, the district, I know that we use a lot of restorative practices. I will say the way, Dr. Bucher, the way you were talking about it was there's an increase here and a reduction here, but they're not really statistically significant changes if you're looking at like the Asian population, like the count from 3 to 4. There's just not a very big number to begin with. But I think I would be more interested to see the number of disciplinary incidents, office referrals of any kind, whether that's changing. And I understand that maybe isn't what is in this particular goal, but I just think it would be more informative.
I think that I agree with you. I don't think we've ever looked at that like for middle level, but I think that was part of the PBIS data was referrals. So to your point, it's a more broad evaluation of what's going on. I don't know what the tracking is like for middle level. I don't. Yeah, I think in the secondary it would probably be the most informative, but.
And therein, my only concern about that then is if we have control over whether or not someone is referred to the office for something, right? And if we don't track every offense, then we're not necessarily sure if there's going to be a change in that.
We do. We track every offense. There's minor and major. Our goal when this was written, if you read it, was the Safe Schools Report. The Safe Schools Report doesn't want to know all of the minor because every school would be sending thousands. They really want to know the major offenses that would cause a concern or a disruption in the Safe Schools Report. So when we responded with this data, it's the data that is uploaded again to the state that are the state codes for state reportable in our Power School system and in the system before. We place them in, teachers can place in the discipline, it goes to the office, and then it's tagged or flagged as minor or major.
So all minor offenses then are
that are reported are collected.
okay.
If the classroom teacher reports it, yes.
Right, and so does that mean that there is a disincentive for a teacher to report it?
No.
Okay. I mean,
They're often looking for support.
No, everybody reports. It goes into the system. The only items that are put in this report is the state reportable items, and that's by law, and that's why we had it, and it was disproportionately. And if you remember, back in a few years ago, and that's what we were trying to address.
Other questions?
I have a question.
Sure, Ryan.
When you look at like the state reportable offenses, is the total count, is that a single person, or like what if a single person had multiple offenses?
That's an excellent question.
Is it just
One-
a couple?
One we've talked about in the past.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I don't mean it's a bad
Oh.
question. I just mean it's such an
Yeah.
important question. I've been here a while, so I don't mean like recently, but yeah, historically we've kind of brought up.
It can be the same person.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I was wondering if there could be like data on like how many people through the years. Is there less people now than there was last year? Data specific to that instead of just looking at the offenses.
So how many total students instead of how many offenses?
Yeah.
I mean, we don't have it tonight, but that is something that we can find, sure.
Somebody that does it 10 times this year, then next year they're in high school and they do it 12 times, and it's the same person.
Year over year,
Throughout their
yeah.
educational journey, it keeps raising that number, or
Yeah. And we have no control over that. We can't.
Yeah.
It counts as an offense. And because, just so you know, because our numbers are so low,
For certain demographics.
yeah, any one offense, as you can see, it disproportionately
Has a big impact on the percentage.
yes. Mhm.
Yeah. All right, are we ready to move on to the next goal? I think it would be prudent.
Goal 3 is the college and career ready goal. This is some really good data we have to share on this one. And our goal was 95% of all 5th, 8th, and 11th grade students show evidence of meaningful engagement in college, career, educational work standards, as you can see. If you want to skip to the next chart, because we've exceeded this goal for 2 years in a row, it's no longer a future-ready goal for us. So you can see the blue category, all student groups exceed that standard, which means that we've had really good success at all students submitting information in Zello and collecting the artifacts and demonstrating that they are making gains on their college and career readiness in that measure that the state measures in that way.
The second sub-goal of Goal 3 came out of discussions back in 2022 about transitions. And what we were trying to get is 90% of students feel socially and emotionally prepared to transition. For those of you that were with us a couple years ago, you'll remember that. We do not know if we ever got students to fully understand what we were asking. We asked the same question. We added it to the PA School Climate Survey. You can see that our elementary didn't really change at all. And we would really have to do a deeper analysis to understand why only around 70 to 72% over the years that we gave that feel that way. There is an increase in middle school. You can see there's still apprehension. And all students were asked this. So this would be grades. The PA School Climate Survey is grades 3 through 12. We don't have it broken down, but we did not reach that goal. We did make improvements within the high school, but again, as Aaron said, probably not statistically significant when you're only looking at a couple of percentage points.
Actually, I did have just a point that I wanted to make about this. This question, because it's part of the survey, is asked in November, and I wasn't ready to transition to the next grade in November either. So I could understand why you wouldn't hit 90% necessarily, right?
And it is no longer on our future ready comprehensive plan. It is still something that we can continue to look at and monitor.
Yeah, and we also talked about, because at one point we thought about asking in the spring, but then sometimes in the spring the students, they're just anxious about going on to the next thing. So even if they might feel, even if they're kind of ready, they're just so worried, particularly.
Ask them if they're ready to transition to summer vacation.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Carmen, did you have a question? Okay. I didn't miss anybody? All right. Can I move on?
Jonathan, you got to talk.
Sorry. So that's to increase the number of students graduating from the district from 95 to 98%. So looking at this one here, it's the 4-year cohort. So you can see the 93.9 is our graduation rate. The 2033, well into the future, goal, we've exceeded that state, and the state average is 87.6. This is a lagging indicator, so this information is from the 22-23 school year. One thing that I wanted to just share, that there also is a 5-year cohort, so if a freshman enters in 9th grade but takes an extra year along the way to get through graduation, Our 5-year cohort is 95.5%, which is 5.5 points higher than the state average of 90. So that's a positive note to share that within 5 years, it's a high percentage as well.
Finally, just for your information, and again, we'll be reporting out, you're going to hear our building administrators report out at the February board work session. We still have 2 of the 3 goals that we've talked about in the next future ready plan for 24 to 27. Goal 2 in our current future ready plan is now math specific. You will see now that there are target years. This year it is 70%, so I'm hoping after you saw the data that we will hit that target year, but really we have a lot of schools that are trying to go above the 70% for this year and get to the 80 or 90 since that's what their data is showing they can. And then the ELA goal is still a goal. It is now goal 6. And we added with that the structured literacy component of the PD that the state is requiring so that all teachers will receive, all teachers with certain certifications will receive that training to better prepare our students. As Chris talked about, the college and career readiness goal is no longer a goal for us. That does not mean that we aren't going to continue to focus on it. It is a future ready requirement, and our school counselors do a beautiful job working through that to make sure that the students are submitting and going through those plans.
Great. Thanks very much. Other last questions people have come up with? Great. That's a lot of data and information. I really appreciate the presentation this evening and putting it all together. Thanks. People want to take a break now or after the next one? All right. We'll try to knock out facilities and grounds. We have an update on the physical plant project from Mr. Fisher. Huh? Okay. We're going to get to check out your new digs, right?
Quick update on the new physical plant building, just about finished. So temporary occupancy, we're looking at next week. We have our last inspections for the fire alarm. It's Thursday, so we're hoping to actually move the week after, as far as moving administrator offices, network, that type stuff. The shop is both done. We've got our furniture in. A few outstanding items. The biggest one's the elevator, but we can get temporary occupancy. There's a piece of the elevator that's somehow got on back order. So we can still get temporary occupancy without it. And then, if you remember, we had some back and forth with code when this project started for about 3 months or so, 4 months. It kind of pushed it into winter when we didn't expect that. So some of the landscaping, site lighting, that kind of stuff, some of that's pretty tough to do right now. So, but again, we should be able to get temporary occupancy without that kind of stuff. So, just exterior above, I mean, really everything on the exterior facade is 100% complete. Just some of the site progress. Below, it's turning out really nice. I think our staff's really happy with it. Shop space. So again, I encourage everybody to go see our shop at Fairmounts and see how nice it is compared to the new shop coming in. So like I said, the guys are excited about it. We have a lift in there. We are going to greatly increase our capabilities of our staff to do a lot of our work internally now that we have the space to actually perform the work. So front entrance vestibule, as you come in the front from the community field, we have our 2 administrative assistants that will sit there, along with my office will be right out there out front. And then we have both a break room for both kind of more office staff and upstairs, and then more technical team downstairs. And then we also incorporated in the upstairs kind of a little cubby there in the background of the picture to house all of our drawings. So we have lots and lots and lots of old drawings that we need to go through that are housed in Fairmount. It's a daunting task, but we're hoping to get through those and actually get them organized. We have a nice place to store them, get them out. And then we dedicated an entire room for part storage. As you've heard me mention before, we are investing in really building a spare parts inventory, which we don't have currently. We have spare parts, but we don't have a good organized inventory. So with our system that we have in place, we're going to really start building that inventory, creating locations. So the idea is that, we know what we have on hand at any given time, and we will set up maxes and mins so that when we get low on any given part we want to keep in stock, we'll get notified to reorder, which will cut down on a little downtime, frustration for both staff if it's too hot or too cold, along with my staff having the parts on hand to be able to go and get it fixed. Now maybe not have to run to one of the parts suppliers locally to get it. So we hope to really become more efficient in this entire process as well. So it's kind of the high-level overview. Like I said, we're going to be pretty well wrapped up. It's kind of long. If anybody would like to come see it, feel free to let me know, and I'll be happy to take you through. But we're pretty excited about it.
I actually had a question, Mike, whether there might be a possibility to invite CTC students over to see it when it's complete, and especially when all the parts inventory is there, because I think there are probably some programs the students might be really interested in.
Absolutely.
What you have there.
We work closely with our CTC program. I know that the construction trades, we invited them over during construction.
Oh, okay.
They had their classrooms
Great.
over there going through, and they did hard hats.
Definitely.
So, we try to incorporate and work together with the students in CTC anytime we have building projects. So
Excellent.
I would
Great.
envision the same thing is going to happen when we get into the elementary.
Okay.
We'll engage them at that point as well.
Cool.
Great, thanks. Peter?
How's the roof?
It's flat and dry.
Is there solar on it?
Not yet.
When's it coming?
When it gets a little warmer for the installer. But it's a ballasted system. It's completely separate from, our distribution right now. So we can get temporary occupancy, but as soon as looks like it's a high of 18 tomorrow. As soon as the weather breaks a little bit, they'll get up there and get that on. We did opt for a ballasted system, so there's no actual roof penetrations. There's no screws going through the roof. So it's a little bit more structurally. However, every screw that goes through the roof is a leak point. So, and once you put solar on, it becomes tougher to fix.
I have a follow-up question, just as a scheduling question. I thought that was going to be done in October.
Yes, we also thought that as well. But I think they got pushed back and materials, and it wasn't holding up occupancy, so it was, it is what it is.
Other questions? All right, thanks very much, Mike, and welcome to your new home. And I'm sure it'll be a little bit warmer probably too in the shop for. Okay. All right, I think we're going to take a quick 5-minute recess, and then we'll come back and finish up the rest of the agenda. And you make a good hall monitor. Thank you. Everybody ready? Okay. I'd like to reconvene the January 13th, 2025 Committee of the Whole regular board meeting of the State College Area School District Board of Directors. So we're going to move on to the Finance Committee. We're going to have Dr. Bucher join us again for an update on the transition of the new high school resource officer. Yeah. Thanks, Jonathan.
So I really just wanted to share that some news. Some of you already know that John Aston, our SRO at the high school at State High, will be retiring in the next month and a half. So congratulations to him on his retirement. Much indebted to his service to the district. And in that transition, there's the State College Police have selected Officer Matt Hurt Lynn. It looks like Hurt Line, but it's Hurt Lynn pronounced. He'll be part of the transition and shadowing SRO Aston at the high school, State High, in that transition period. So we're looking forward to having a solid month and a half transition between the two before. Yes.
Okay.
Try another one?
No, just get closer.
Okay. Get closer. Okay. So, no P's, right? So, Officer Hurtlin will be shadowing Officer Aston for the next month and a half at State High. So we're looking forward to that transition period. His qualifications are in the memo, and he has worked with our State High team in the past with some of his prior work. So we're looking forward to that transition there, and very much want to make sure we recognize Officer Aston's dedication to our district and service to us as he transitions into other adventures.
Great. Yeah, John will certainly be very missed. I recall when Gretchen and I came on the board was right around when Terry Steck was the long-term high school SRO, also very beloved and well-known in the community. And there was a lot of anxiety about, him leaving and what was it going to be like. And when Officer Aston came in, everybody, found themselves delighted. So I'm very hopeful that we'll have a very similar situation when Officer Hurtline comes in. So any other questions about the?
Yeah, I'm just a little curious. I'm not sure why this is under finance.
Because we have an MOU with the borough and other police departments with our SROs as far as the finance that we pay part of their salary.
Part of it was initially we were thinking like it's kind of like an HR issue, but we don't actually employ him. That he's employed by the borough, so it kind of is under. HR usually comes under our finance department agenda, so we were struggling where to put it, and so it just seems like that was a quiet place on this agenda, and so that's
I
where
know a lot of the SO's issues also has come under CCL.
Yes.
So that's another
Yeah.
place that I thought it would be when I was reading it, and I was like, okay, yeah, just curious.
Can I just ask, are there going to be opportunities between now and then for people in the public to meet? Officer, was it Hurtlin you said?
Yeah, Hurtlin. No offense,
Hurtlin, yes.
Yeah, so he's currently, I believe, starting tomorrow at State High.
Oh,
so
okay.
he'll be in the ranks.
Will he be available? I don't know if Officer Aston is usually at the SCASD Reads event.
We can see if he can attend. I do have him attending the MLK day.
Oh, okay.
We asked him to be there as well for one of our safety trainings, so hopefully he'll be able to join us for that day. And he was at the potato event.
It's on there. Yep.
Sorry, the social media and potato event that we had.
Potato. Yep.
it was soups and spuds for
Thank
the
you.
social media discussion. Yeah, I know that's all I can remember too. They were not. They were baked potatoes.
Just baked potatoes.
And soup and chili. Other questions about our incoming officer? Okay. Thanks very much, Jonathan. Thanks. That concludes our committee of the whole portion of the agenda. We now have time for additional public comment. Is there anyone in person who would like to make public comment? Anyone joining remotely? All right, then we'll move on. So next we have our consent agenda, which includes several items we'll address in a single motion for approval, and we'll go through each category stepwise with questions and discussion. So any problems or corrections in the minutes? All right. Then in finance and personnel, we have some grants that we're receiving, routine district bills, reconditioning to some athletic equipment and purchase of some athletic equipment, music instrument purchases as well. Any questions on these items? All right. Then instructional programs, we have our routine student trips information, no corrections. And physical plant, some routine contracts. Any questions on those? All right, smooth and simple, I like it. I'd like to call for a motion to approve the consent agenda items 11 through 14 as presented, please.
I've so moved.
Colby, second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. Any additional last minute questions? Any public comment on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none. Board members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, consent agenda has passed. We'll move on to action items. Agenda item 15A is a motion to approve 2 memorandums of understanding with the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, commonly affectionately referred to as ASME here. These are all shown in attachment 15A. Do I have a motion?
Anderson, so moved.
Cleverquist, second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any questions or discussions? These are some adjustments due to the IRS changes in high deductible health care requirements and some other agreements. All right, no questions? Any public comment on this item? All right, board members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That item is passed. Agenda item 15B is a motion to approve 2025-2026 academic calendar. This is shown in attachment 15B.
I've so moved.
Miller, second.
The academic calendar is a hot item to move on. Any questions or discussion? So we did have a briefing on this earlier. I know we received a couple emails about some questions and some clarifications. I guess one comment I'd like to make is it might surprise some people that there's such a lengthy break at Thanksgiving, and that's not intended to change how we take a break at Thanksgiving. It's just coinciding with when we have some contractual records days and other days at that same time happen to fall on the calendar. So that's not necessarily an intentional. There was couple questions about that, whether we were suddenly giving a whole week for Thanksgiving, and that's not necessarily the plan, right? So. Any other questions on the calendar? Anything else administration wants to add about it? Not really. Okay. Is there any public, all right, it's like questions. Yeah, any public comment on the academic calendar? Sure.
Jennifer Black, Half Moon Township. So just clarification, as I have some friends who were wondering, as far as staff members are concerned, if there are snow days beyond 3, does that mean that the staff would be making up the three snow days plus any student days? And I just wanted to make sure that it seems like something that maybe isn't completely understood or hasn't been circulated amongst staff. So, thank you.
I would. No, I would imagine if staff have questions, it would be good for them to direct them to.
Yes, I would say if there's any staff with questions, to direct them either to SCALE leadership or myself. So
Yeah.
that's what I was saying.
All right.
Or my designee, Jonathan.
It's just probably easier to explain directly to the individuals rather than try to make it straightforward here tonight. Any other public comment on the calendar? Anybody online? Okay. Board members in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that item is passed. Agenda item 15C is a motion to approve the 2025-2026 budget opt-out resolution. This is shown in attachment 15C.
Huff, so moved.
Miller second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. This is pretty routine for us here in State College. We have rarely exceeded the Act 1 index and routinely opt out, aside from our high school project. So is there anything that the finance team would like to add about this item? Any questions from board members? Wait, did we have a motion in a second? Yeah, we
Yes.
did. That's right. It's all blurring together, sorry. All right, no questions. All right, this is easy peasy. Any public comment on opt-out? All right, board members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That item is passed. Next up, we have agenda item 15D is a motion to approve permission to release an RFP for underwriting services as shown in attachment 15D.
Kavika, so moved.
Miller second.
Okay, that's been moved and seconded. I think Mr. Brown and, no, okay.
No, we're happy to answer any questions
Okay.
if there are any.
All right, so this is about getting some financial services that we'll need moving forward with our upcoming building projects. All right, no questions? All right, any public comment on this item? All right, seeing none, board members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, that's passed. Agenda item 15E is a motion to approve State Solar for Schools grant program for Mount Nittany Elementary School and Park Forest Middle School, as shown in attachment 15E.
Colby, so moved.
Buck, second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded by our enthusiastic solar supporters. Do we have any questions or discussion for Mr. Brown on this item? So this will give the administration team the opportunity to start applying in a process for those solar grants. Yes, Ms. Dr. Anderson.
I just wondered if Randy could just explain where the numbers came from for the two grants
Sure.
briefly.
The design team, led by Crabtree Warbaugh, has worked on the cost estimates. Obviously, for Mount Nittany L, that cost is from the bid documents for the bid alternate for that.
It looks slightly
Right.
different, but within a small enough band that I'm sure it was just estimating error, or they updated the numbers, but, okay.
Right. And then they just extrapolated using that amount for the Park Forest Middle School project, multiplying it by a factor for a appropriate estimated size for that facility.
Sounds good.
And there's also a maximum grant amount reimbursable on that on any project, which is $300,000. So
Gotcha.
the Park Forest amount would have been higher than that, but there's a cap.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, yeah, Peter.
No, I have a comment. It's an editorial comment, and not for Randy. I'm sure all of the members of the community have been paying attention to the fires in California, the Eaton fire, the Pasadena fire. These are among some of the fastest growing, though small and concentrated, but probably most expensive fires in history. They come at a very strange time of year compared to the historic wildfire season. And the explanation for that has to do with a combination of factors, one of which is climate change. Humans burning fossil fuels have amplified the greenhouse effect. Hotter, protracted, drier conditions that follow extreme rain that created an excessive amount of vegetation that then dried out is perfect fuel. Hotter conditions will dry those out. Fire is imminent. It is sad. It is predictable. And so I just really want to thank the board for doing another small part to draw down our greenhouse gas emissions. You know, this little teeny thing is one of potentially thousands and thousands, millions of very small things that communities across the world, in our country, especially one with resources like ours, can do. And so I just really want to thank the board for doing that. It matters to people, and it matters to our posterity. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter. Yeah, I've read a comment recently that was paraphrased because I don't remember exactly, but essentially there are no small acts. Every act matters. So, any other comments or editorial input? Okay. Any public comment on this item? All right. Board members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. That item has passed. Agenda item 15F, that's a tongue twister, is a motion to approve an amended cost-sharing agreement for the power purchase agreement, as shown in attachment 15F. Any?
Oh, so moved.
Okay.
Buck second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. So this is just an adjustment from our other MOU with the new cost-sharing arrangements with the entities that we know are involved.
Now, this is
no.
This is amending the cost sharing agreement to pay up until.
Oh, up until,
the
right,
new
yes,
agreement.
correct, sorry.
Yes. The previous agreement had expired, and so we are creating a new document that will fill the gap.
Gotcha. Apologies.
And the Exhibit A, I apologize, was omitted, but it has been corrected and it is attached online now.
Thank
you so
you.
choose to review it.
I have a quick question.
Yes, sorry.
That's okay. So on that Exhibit A, which is page 12, I'm just trying to understand, this is cost sharing for anticipated expenses,
No,
for
this is-
expenses that might come up?
This is legal and covering legal and the consulting costs from the period from which the previous contract MOU expired until we get to the new MOU.
Okay.
So it's no new dollars. It's all the dollars that have already been expended and committed.
Okay. So it's just, so I guess I thought most of those had already been reimbursed to the district,
Most of them have been, yes.
but not all.
There are still some that are waiting for reimbursement.
Okay.
However, it's still that entire time period.
Gotcha. And so this is just, so basically there could be small little bits that are either being paid to us or we're giving back to other people?
Everybody's paying to us. We've paid all the bills.
Okay. I guess like if somebody had already paid their share, but their share is getting, I guess it would get bigger at this
There's
point because
no-
people dropped out?
There's no refunds due anyone except reimbursement to the district.
Okay. And there's no new expected costs at this point? That's
There
all
are
right.
no new
Just
expected-
making sure that
Not
we're
a
all
problem.
on the same page. Thank you.
Peter.
Half Moon Township.
Half Moon Township is the exception to that rule.
And I saw that in last month's district bills, we had paid Half Moon Township for some administrative services.
For tax collection. I
Yeah,
believe.
but Half Moon Township has not ever paid the district.
That's correct.
And I understand that they were the smallest of the group.
That's correct.
I'm just going to note an irony that their former chair is one of the most vocal critics of this process about paying anything, and his township has not paid us. So I would just like that to be in the record as my
Understood.
statement. Thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks for clarifying that, Randy, about what the reason for the new MOU. Or, yeah. All right, any public comment on this item? All right, board members in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that item has passed. And that concludes our action items for this evening. Thank you to all the administrators for their presentations. That concludes everything, and we'll look forward to future meetings. So we have January 21st, 2025, the Policy Development Committee at 1:30 here in Panorama Village. We'll also have January 27th, a regular board meeting at 7 p.m.
I didn't understand it either.
Here, let me say it again. January 27th, 2025, we will have a regular board meeting here at 7 p.m. in Panorama Village. Then, on February 3rd, my birthday, I have to run a meeting of Committee of the Whole regular board meeting at 7 p.m. here at Panorama Village. And on February 5th, we'll have a really wonderful event that I know we're all looking forward to, is the SCASD Reads event. And also the board is going to be attending that as one of our conversations with the community events. So we're excited to be there and partake, but also engage with the community, answer questions, or have conversations about any particular item that the public is interested in chatting about. That will be at 6 p.m. It's at State College Area High School in the library. And with that, I'd like to adjourn the meeting. Have a good night.